במצוותיו וציוונו לעשות
בדברי
בדברי
Torah.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen. Okay, and I'm just adjusting everything so that I can also see you all. Okay, so this week's Parsha is Vayishlach, and this is a big one. We have the moment when Jacob's name is changed from Jacob to Israel in this Parsha. And so that's the main thing I'm interested in. I mean, there's a lot in this Parsha, but that's really what I'm hoping to focus on together today. So the context of our Parsha is Jacob is an adult. He has 11 sons, one daughter. He's married to Leah and Rachel. They have left Laban's house, and they bring with them all of their animals, all of their possessions, all of the servants and people who are with their family. And they are now traveling back to the land. So Jacob is on this journey really back to his home. He was born in the land and he left there when he escaped after he tricked his father and tricked his brother. His brother vowed to kill him. He left, went to Laban's house, got married, had his kids, and now he's coming back. And there are so many stories in the Torah with an interesting cyclical nature to them. And so one of the things that I want us to keep in mind as we're reading the first two chapters of our Parsha today is, what are we noticing from Jacob's story before this that's now coming up again? Maybe it's coming up in a new way, but what is coming again? And so one is his return to the land. So that's like one bigger piece of this story. Okay. So we are coming in right after he and Leah and Rachel and all of the kids and everything they possess have left Laban. They haven't settled anywhere yet. They're on this journey back to the land. Okay, so that is the beginning of Vayishlach. All right. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau. Remember, his brother Esau is the one who he deceived a couple parshiot ago. He sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and instructed them as follows. Thus shall you say to my lord Esau, and thus says your servant Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now. I have acquired cattle, asses, sheep, and male and female slaves, and I send this message to my lord in the hope of gaining your favor. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and his retinue numbers 400. Jacob was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Okay. So Jacob is going back home to the land. The last time he was there, he tricked Esau, he tricked Isaac. He, left, he fled before anybody could realize that he was gone or could harm him. And now he's coming back. Why even reach out to Esau, who he knows hates him? He's clearly, it says in verse 8, Jacob was greatly frightened in his anxiety. He's dividing everything into two camps. His assumption is he's going to get attacked by his brother. Why even reach out to begin with? Why is he doing this?
Well, why not? He's afraid. He's entering the land. He doesn't want to be taken by surprise. I guess that's one thing. And he has a battle plan here, dividing the camp into two. And perhaps he can make peace with his brother. He's entering the brother's land now. I mean, the brother is there. So rather than be taken by surprise, He's announcing he's there. And then what it, what's to come? I mean, he struggles with the angel. Isn't that the angel to come when at nighttime? He's struggling with his anxiety there and his fear, and maybe his good and bad self, his
Mm.
Yetzirah and his Yetzer Tov. So, which is going to take precedence? And he has to try and overcome that anxiety by facing the source of the fright, which is Esau. And he might also have a desire to reconcile,
Mm.
let bygones be bygones and forget about what I did to you. So, good question.
Nice. But yeah, he does seem to have, right, he's anxious, he's scared, but it seems like he's almost cautiously optimistic. And maybe, like you said, he knows he's entering Esau's territory again. Um, Maybe just as Jacob doesn't want to be surprised, he doesn't want to surprise Esau. He knows how badly he treated his brother. It's almost like an opportunity to make up for it. Yeah, Panina. Panina, you have to unmute.
I think that we're not giving enough credit to Esau. And in the beginning, also when it happened with Isaac and his brother, not Isaac, I'm sorry, when okay, I'm getting all mixed up. Okay, let's just make it to the point. I don't think that there was any plan to have a fight to begin with. We're not giving enough credit to
To
to the
Jacob?
to the brothers, the two of them, because there was a deal there. First of all, he sold his birthright. So he sold it as a done deal. He sold it willingly. So there was no reason for him to really get into a war or fight with his brother. So I think that what Jacob is experiencing now is whether or not to follow spiritually his brother or his own understanding of what is a God. So this, like we know with the struggle with the angels, that he actually had this internal struggle whether or not to pursue it as even a subject or a topic. He decides to follow his own way. He's not going to force it on his brother. They hug and they kissed.
Oh, wait, wait. Okay, wait, we haven't even gotten there yet. Okay, okay.
What I'm trying to say,
Oh yeah. Okay, so we haven't gotten there yet. So we're gonna get there soon. Benjamin, I see your hand.
Thank you, Rabbi. I think Susan made some interesting points, but I'm not sure if I totally agree. But I'm thinking about my own siblings, and we fight or have
As all
disagreements.
siblings do.
And but I still love my siblings very much, and the fights kind of go away. So maybe here, these are two brothers, correct?
Yes.
So they're siblings, and they fight. I know the fight was kind of serious, but maybe Jacob is figuring, kind of bygones be bygones, my brother, and I want to welcome him. I'm saying to my brother, hey, I'm prosperous. I have all these cows or what have you, and come on back, and it'll be okay. We're a happy family.
And it seems like because he's talking about, right, what he has acquired, that it's like he's making this offering to his brother, and sort of setting up that he wants he wants things to be okay, or he wants to make things right in some kind of way. And it's interesting because we see it, there's like a mysterious nature, I think, to, or at least for me, to these two chapters, I think to the whole episode. I think there are many ways to read it, and the text can point to, Jacob is anxious and scared and he's preparing for the worst. Or it can point to Jacob really wants to make things right, and so does Esau. Or it can point to Esau is actually malicious under all of this. And I think we can read it so many different ways. And the text actually points to all of them in different places. But Jacob seems to be sort of like straddling that line of wanting to give to Esau and also wanting to protect himself, which also feels very human, of a complicated relationship with somebody. It's also his twin brother. And so there were there was a prophecy even, back when Rebecca was pregnant with them about the younger one serving the older one. Not that Jacob necessarily knows that, but us as the readers, we are reading all of that in to this episode right now. I also just want to note, so I think I've mentioned before that I like using the Eitz Chaim Chumash, and one of the things it talks about is when it says that like Esau also reaches out and he himself is coming to meet you. And he has 400 men with him. So apparently the number 400, says the Eitz Chaim Chumash, was the ancient Near Eastern number for a militia. So that could also be a number that triggered something for Jacob of it's not just, oh, Esau's coming with his family. We're going to be a big happy family again. But it's possible that Jacob hears this number and then says, oh no, he's coming with an army. So that's just an interesting thing to note. Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, like Ulysses, who is also a trickster and going home, and there's a similarity there. Are we supposed to maybe wonder whether Jacob is planning another trick at this point?
It based on everything Jacob has ever done to anybody who's ever been in a relationship with him, I think it's easy to assume Jacob's planning something. And he's also very strategic here with dividing into two camps, and then we see even more of that division later on. But he's very strategic with how he does everything. Brad, is that how you're reading it? Like,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm reading it, but knowing that he is a trickster,
Hmm.
uh, I think it opens a door to wonder whether he isn't, whether isn't some there. We're not whether we're supposed to wonder whether there's some trick in the works here.
Right, that he has in mind and up his sleeve.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jacob then prays to God. He hears about this entire army that's coming with his brother, who last he heard absolutely hates him. And so he prays to God, and maybe it is coming from this place of love and wanting to reconcile with his brother. Maybe it is coming from a place of this guy has a track record of being a trickster and he wants to pull off another one to protect himself. And this is his prayer to God. Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham's house and God of my father Isaac's house, O Adonai, who said to me, return to your native land and I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count. All right. So in this prayer, we have a little bit of history also. Jacob going to God and invoking the name of his grandfather, Abraham, his father Isaac, which is similar to our own prayers today when we also invoke the names of our ancestors, and returning to the promise that God made that he's worried Esau's going to come and kill either him or his children or some faction of this family that has been promised to become this great nation. And he, to me, is asking God for this protection based on that promise. I also think it's interesting when he says, with my staff alone, I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. I think like we as the reader are also reminded of like the vulnerability of this person, that he came at a moment when he was fleeing and really had no one, didn't know where he was going to go, where he would end up, who he would be. And now he's returning with so much. And we as the reader are like, we're seeing a bit of that journey now. And he's realizing that despite all of that, it can also go away very quickly. Okay, any reactions to this prayer before we get to the story of the wrestling?
Well, I
Yeah,
think
Susan.
that I was thinking about what Brad said, that he may still be a trickster. We don't know. But this prayer doesn't seem like a trickster. It seems like he has evolved Judaically or towards God, because his prayer before he went to earlier on, if you do this, if you protect me, then I will, although I don't know that he says then, but if you do this, I will be, there's no iffy in here. I think it shows a change from that trickster who has been tricked himself with the two wives, and other things with Laban. So I think this shows growth here in the right direction.
Nice. And shows like he is at God's mercy here. Maybe for once in his life, he actually can't control what's about to happen. And he is so used to being that trickster, that manipulator. And maybe he's realizing I can't trick and manipulate everything, and I need God's help. And I like also, returning to that question that I posed at the beginning of what elements of this Jacob are we seeing in contrast to our past Jacob? That prayer is one of those pieces. The way he talks to God, engages with God, and formulates his words with God. Okay, great. Okay. Verse 14. After spending the night there, he selected from what was at hand these presents for his brother Esau: 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 20 ewes, and 200 ewes and 20 rams. 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 he-asses. These he put in charge of his servants, drove by drove, and he told his servants, "Go on ahead and keep a distance between droves." He instructed the one in front as follows: "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, 'Who's your master? Where are you going? And whose animals are these ahead of you?' you shall answer, 'Your servant Jacob's. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob himself is right behind us.'" He gave similar instructions to the second one and the third one, and all the others who followed the droves, namely the... Oh, sorry, one second. Okay. Namely, thus and so you shall say to Esau when you reach him, and you shall add, "And your servant Jacob himself is right behind us." For he reasoned, "If I propitiate him with presents in advance and then face him, perhaps he will show me favor." Okay. So now we are seeing also the extent of Jacob's wealth and the extent of this next level of planning that he is doing with the segmentation of his animals and his people, and seemingly the gifts that he wants to give to Esau. I think it's interesting. To me, it feels like it's another way of tricking Esau, though, to keep saying, Well, you can tell them, Jacob is right behind us. And then the next one comes, oh no, Jacob's right behind us. Oh, Jacob's right behind us. To me, it feels like another mode of trickery. I don't know if that's just baked into who Jacob is or how others are reading this.
It's
Yeah.
diplomacy, isn't it?
It's what? Yeah.
Diplomacy, and Brad always brings out the gift giving in the ancient world, and expecting return. So that could be called diplomacy, and diplomacy could lead to trick, be based on trickery. But I think this is diplomatic.
And like maybe what Esau would even anticipate happening of like these different waves of gifts and offerings, I guess, being made. Yeah, Benjamin.
Well, certainly a way of buttering somebody up.
Yeah.
Here's some nice gifts, and he's right here. Oh, more nice gifts. It's right. I think just as you said, Rabbi, it's just a way of, smoothing things over. I mean, once they finally do meet, I mean, I haven't read ahead, but I've got all these gifts. I'm going to feel pretty good. I'm going to be in a good mood because I got all this stuff. So certainly creates an entree to reconciliation between these brothers.
And especially because things have been so bad, needing the waves and waves and waves and more and more and more. Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, I guess you could say in terms of trickery here that Jacob is trapping Esau into the hospitality code. That once he's made these gifts, then Esau, under the hospitality code, is required then to return those gifts and enter into a gift exchange type of procedure. So it's a very clever move on his part to send the gifts ahead and, in a sense, and like I say, trap Esau into a position.
Yeah, and so it would make it so that Esau has no choice about what comes next also, or he has a choice, but given the standards, there is one correct choice, and that's it. Okay. Let's Oh, and also the language I think is significant of Jacob continuing to say, your servant Jacob, and the language he asks his people to use with Esau is like Lord versus servant. And Jacob both trying to, I mean, I think Benjamin said butter him up with the gifts themselves and also with the language that he's using. And this might even be the first moment we see, I'm not sure. I don't know actually, but it feels like a unique moment of Jacob humbling himself, and like really recognizing that he needs to humble himself in this moment. Okay. Yeah,
So,
Susan.
yeah, I looked at Rabbi Sachs again, and he definitely says that it's just humbling himself. We haven't gotten there yet when they actually meet, but he says he uses the term servant, Eved, a number of times, like 7 times, and my Lord, and he bows down to him. And that also is opposite. I mean, it deals with the younger shall serve the older,
Yes.
in the prophecy that Rebecca got, and Jacob stealing it from Esau, and now it's reversed. He reverses that, and he becomes and he's also marked by humility in that, but also servility as well. So that's a change.
Nice. Right. So another change, another reversal from what we saw at the beginning of Jacob's story, just through the language that he's using. And that's so interesting. I didn't realize that it says that 7 times, but that feels significant as well, just because the number 7 is such an important number in the Torah, with 7 days of the week for Shabbat. And we see 7 come up over and over again as a number of wholeness and a holistic number. Penina, I see you. I just want to, we'll keep going. I want to make sure we get to the actual the actual dream or encounter or whatever this is that Jacob has. Okay. And so the gifts went on ahead while he remained in camp that night. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, it doesn't mention his 1 daughter who has been born and we know exists, he crosses the ford of the Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all of his possessions. So he's going back and forth and back and forth. And in that moment, Jacob was left alone, and a figure, a man, Ish, wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle. Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, that one line about asking for the blessing, can you go back to who's asking that question?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so who is asking? Wait, let's go back to that. Okay. Wrestled with him.
No, it's
Oh, here,
previous.
27. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking," but he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me."
Yeah,
That part?
yeah.
Okay. So so Jacob is saying, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." But it's very confusing because we don't have, like, it just says he the whole way. I think it's intentionally confusing because I think also who he's wrestling with is intentionally confusing. There's a mystery shrouded in all of this. Who is this Ish that he is wrestling with? And like there are many different commentaries. Some say it's Esau or Esau's conscience. Some say it's Jacob's own conscience. The predominant view is that it's an angel of some sort. But because we don't know, I think that adds to the confusion here. And maybe, lending itself to the interpretation that Jacob's wrestling with himself and his own conscience, if it just keeps saying he over and over again, and we really can't tell who this is. Yeah, Panina. Panina, can you unmute? Okay. Um, yeah, we can't hear you. Okay, so I'm curious to hear any interpretations. Um, who is this man Jacob is wrestling with? Because the text doesn't. Yeah, Benjamin.
I may be way off, but are the 2 brothers wrestling here?
So it might be the two. So the text doesn't tell us. Conventional wisdom is that it's some kind of angel from God. And the text doesn't tell us. And I think it's intentionally ambiguous because there are so many ideas that make sense. Okay, so why do you think it's the 2 brothers who are wrestling?
Well, I think it's just sort of so metaphoric. They've been apart, they don't recognize each other, And sometimes, I guess, siblings, maybe not as adults, but wrestle. Um, I just think that the symbolism of them wrestling and the hip and the praying together just sort of fits for me.
And it fits with the narrative leading up until now when we know that Esau's coming. So when we hear that a man is wrestling with him, it's easy to make that leap between a man and Esau when that is the man who we've been hearing about is coming to meet up with him. And
And just,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rabbi, but I'm just thinking wrestling is a little different than fighting to the death or something. Again, siblings and friends. I mean, maybe not now as a 66-year-old, but back in college, my buddies and I used to wrestle, in the dorms, the frat, what have you. It was just part of the experience, part of manhood.
And also kind of like what you were saying before when right, there are two different types of wrestling that you're pointing to. One is a physical wrestling, and one is some kind of metaphorical, mental, emotional wrestling, which they're long overdue for. And it seems like Jacob is also doing, I mean, until now, he's been doing that internal wrestling too, with just reaching out to his brother. It's also nighttime. So when it says man, like maybe Jacob can't see who he's wrestling. Brad, go ahead. Oh, Brad, you're muted.
I wonder what the relationship is with the fact that there's water. And
Mm.
there are water in other mythologies, there are water spirits. And I wonder if they're, why water here? What's the importance of that?
Nice. And water, I mean, does play an important role in the Torah. The phrase Mayim Chaim comes later in the Torah with regard to Miriam, like water being connected with life. And I mean, even today in Judaism, we associate water with this life-giving nature and a transformational nature. If we think about the water of the mikvah and how that is transformational, and this is a transformational moment. And water also as like an artery or a vein, like this like bloodline, they're living in the desert. And so these like the rivers that are there are really like the lifeline, the bloodline for people. And so that is happening sort of at a place of life. And that also gets to the end when in the verse that says, that is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip. That relates to how we keep kosher today, which is that there's like a certain artery around there that is like very bloody and the life source for an animal. And we do not eat that life source of an animal. And that is part of keeping kosher and who we are. Susan, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I think that's a good point. And you made it very well. It's also rebirth. And
Mm.
it's a rebirth of Jacob going from a trickster to someone who wrestles or converses with God. And I think there's been a lot of talk. I think your comment about the ambiguous nature of the he, who's asking the question and who's doing it, is very good and intentional too. Because a lot of them have interpreted it as wrestling with his own conscience, with his good self and bad self, the Sitra Akra, I think, or
Mm.
and the Jungian goes into that too, with the shadow, the self, the good self and the bad self. So I think that there's a lot of resonance.
And so when Susan's talking about the Sitra Achra, it's this like mystical version of the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse. or the negative, or not negative, I get evil impulse that we all have within us. And so, right, he's sort of reflecting on who he is at this moment, reflecting on his relationships. And there is so much about this episode that seems to be a moment of profound transformation, one connected to the water and rebirth, like you're saying. Another with his name being changed from Jacob to Israel, another with his body literally being transformed as the hip is removed from its socket, like the middle of his body is transformed in this moment. Um, who he is and how he sees himself, there seems to be so much that's changing about Jacob. And also, it's like the time of day is changing around him too. Um, this was happening as night fell, and then he asks for he when he says in verse 27, let me go, the angel or Jacob or however we're interpreting this as let me go for dawn is breaking. And then Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Like that's also a transitional moment just in the day to go from darkness into light and from not being able to see to being able to see. And we see so much of Jacob transforming here. Yeah, Brad.
Well, uh, if he's so transformed, how is it that going forward he's continued to be called Jacob and not Israel in the text?
So, right, the text goes back and forth between Jacob and Israel, um, which is also like adds to the confusion. Even our liturgy goes back and forth. Our liturgy, when just like the Torah, when it's trying to be poetic, we'll use Jacob in, the first half of the verse and Israel in the second half of the verse. And so I mean, I wonder if part of that is showing us this transformation of who he is, recognizing that he's not all Israel, the guy who now is honest and he's a good person and he's not deceitful and he, confronts people and things and God head on and he's humble. But he also, like, he does have this past, and part of the honesty of who he is that he's also Jacob still. Um, he has an opportunity for tshuva, and it seems like he's, and we'll see in the next chapter too, he's really trying to take that opportunity for tshuva. Um, and that doesn't completely negate everything he's ever done. Um, and I think it's true of, any of us that we are all offered opportunities for tshuva, should take our opportunities for tshuva. And it doesn't mean anybody who we've done wrong that that's just erased and that that never happened. We have an opportunity to try and make it right. Um, and we still like are a whole person. And that's just the truth of our story and who we are. And I think also, like, to me, that's also part of the message of Jacob's story that we don't encounter, or Jacob or really anybody in the Torah, but I think Jacob's an extreme of that we don't encounter anybody who's perfect. And that his journey shows us what a journey can look like at its absolute, not absolute worst, but in a bad way to in a good way. Yeah, Brad.
Um, can I share for just one brief second how this resonates with me?
Yes.
Having had a bone marrow transplant, I have two sets of DNA. I have
Wow.
a very small percent of my original DNA and 99% of new DNA. So it, there's
Wow.
there are the two sides, the old me and the new me, and that way I guess I can relate in some way to to Jacob Israel here.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And that's such an interesting, also scientific way of thinking about it, within you and within your body. And so much of that is about Jacob's body and self. Thank you. That's amazing. What do people make of the name Israel here, of being defined by this wrestling with God and with humans, and now for the rest of the Torah, the what will become the Jewish people are described as the children of Israel. And, obviously today we've taken on that name in a very serious way with the state of Israel. And how does that name resonate? I'm curious for people, or maybe not resonate. Yeah, Susan. Oh, wait, Susan, you have to unmute.
First of all, I would thank Brad for sharing. That was an amazing story. And it does relate to this thing, but we are not known as Jacobeans, we're known as Israelites. And I think because if we were Jacobs, then we'd have that trickster in us still. But Israelites is wrestling with God, and I think that is so appropriate. I mean, we're doing all of this study now and wrestling with concepts and wrestling with the text and wrestling within ourselves of faith, of courage, and of continuity. So I think that applies very well to the Jewish people.
It really feels like, in so many ways, the essence of who we are. And like you said, this Torah study itself, that this is, and Torah study is a big part of Jewish culture, and how we have been sustained for thousands of years, and sort of turning this idea of wrestling into something that is so beautiful and so positive and so life-giving. Yeah, Benjamin.
Well, I think Susan said it beautifully. And again, Brad, thank you for sharing with us. But in thinking about the name, if not Jacob, then who? Who else? It could have been somebody else. But here we see Jacob showing some good self-awareness and humility. I have all this stuff, and God has, given me such great things. And boy, to have humility and self-awareness and sort of a gratitude towards God, those are qualities, good Jewish qualities. So, if not Jacob, who else? He
Yeah.
showed some of the good stuff that we need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And the things like you were saying, the qualities that our entire tradition is really based on, things like, right, gratitude, humility, wrestling in a way of growth and in a way of positive transformation. Um, and I think, the piece about the blessing is interesting too, when he like wins this struggle and gets his blessing. And, going back to the beginning of his story, he also gets a blessing from his father, but in that part, he tricked his father into a blessing, and now he's earning his blessings. And who are we as a people? We are a people who strives to also earn our blessings, and recognize we can't just take, but we really, right, what does it mean to earn the blessings that we get in our lives? And one of the things my grandmother says every week when she lights Shabbat candles is she always says, may we all be worthy of our blessings. And I think of that when I read this story because it feels like, Jacob really trying to be worthy of this blessing that he wants and that he is trying to earn. Yeah, Benjamin and the Merrill.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. And I'm just thinking also of the fight and the time now we're celebrating the story of Hanukkah and the fight that the Maccabees, this small group of men, and I'm thinking about it because my men's group just met here at my house last week.
Oh, nice.
The small group of men fought to be Jews again, and here today we're Jews again, and then on top of that, we have this, I want to say fight, but this incident at the synagogue and at
Yeah.
K-Town. And we have to remember that there is going to be, or we have fought in the past to be Jews, and we got to still be able to fight today.
Yes. And the fighting also, like, it looks so different in different kinds of spaces and different kinds of ways. The physical fighting that the Maccabees did, and also like the fight for religious freedom and the intellectual fight that they had to go through and that we are going through too. And staying strong in the face of any of that. Meryl.
Isn't this also a piece of why we bless our children and grandchildren on Shabbat?
Yeah, so that actually comes, it's with Jacob, and it comes later. I don't remember how many parshiot later it comes, but he gives blessings to all of his children. He gives blessings to his grandchildren, and that's where blessing our children on Shabbat comes from, and that's where it also comes from to put our hands on the heads of children when we give them a blessing, is from Jacob in that, or I guess I should say Israel, now that his name has been transformed, but from Israel in that moment. And also, I think with that comment, Jacob is a person who his first blessing he stole, his second blessing he earned, and then we see him giving out blessings to his children and to his grandchildren. And I think that's also one of the things that we as Jews, that is our responsibility to take on too, not just to be a people who is blessed, but to be a people who extend and give blessing to others and be that transition here from night to morning and light, and be that transition from light to dark, and the same as the Hanukkah story and the miracle. And so it's a bit of a coincidence that we read this story right around Hanukkah time, but I think also not a coincidence that it's a time when we think deeply about who we are as Jews for the people who came before, that allowed us to live this life, to put our menorah in our window so that we can proudly express who we are as Jews and what it means to take on that word Jew and that word Israel as our identity. So thank you all so much for learning together today. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. If anybody's going to be at Glazer tonight, I will see you tonight for Shabbat. Thank you all so much. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you. Shabbat
Thank you.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure and enlightening. Thank you.
Enlightening for me, so thank you, everyone.
I'll see everyone off and on in a few weeks, depending on
Yes,
where we are and what we're doing.
and Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
All right.